Hello, welcome back, everybody, to the Cinema Wave podcast. We are here at the Culture Wave Media Network discussing episode 7 of season 2 of Apple TV Plus's mega popular series Severance, the episode titled Chikai Bardo. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined, as always, by Liz Seiko.
Hello, what's going on?
And Michael Peniston.
Hey, guys.
We are 7 weeks through Severance. Got just a few weeks left. There's not much time left. And this was a whopper of an episode. This was one that even my more casual television viewing fans all said to me, have you watched this episode yet? Have you watched this episode yet? And this is obviously, I don't know if you guys already saw, but in the beginning of this season, it already surpassed Ted Lasso as the most popular Apple series ever. This is the prestige show on right now. And it's been a while since we've had a show have this kind of feeling behind it, in my opinion. Like I haven't felt something like this probably since season 2 of The Bear, probably, if I had to think about it. House of the Dragon didn't have that same feel. Last of Us somewhat, but it wasn't the same kind of vibe as what the show is kind of doing, bringing in all casual fans as well. But so much of what this episode does is gives us a lot of backstory to Gemma and Mark's relationship and the impact that Lumen has had on all of it. There's a lot to discuss in this episode. So Liz, I'm going to start with you and your broad thoughts and justice for Miss Casey. Are we gonna get this? Are we gonna get a happy ending at some point?
No, I don't think so. I don't even know if we're actually ever gonna get answers as at the end of the story, to be honest. I think that just in what we've talked about in past episodes, what people are loving about this show is just how many questions and how open-ended it is with almost every single character line at this point. There's an overwhelming amount of information that we found out, and then also things that like weren't even on our radar yet about Mark and Gemma's relationship prior. I really like that they are having this be episode 7 because it's just giving us like a dump of information before we really start ramping up into what's probably going to be a crazy last 3 episodes. So I don't know if I can keep giving broad thoughts because some of my thoughts are like very specific and very detailed oriented. So I'm just going to pass it to Michael to give his broad thoughts before we do full deep dive.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I agree. This episode was needed at this time. I agree, but it was definitely not what I was expecting this soon. I really appreciated this episode simply just because of how gorgeous it is. But aside from all of that, there were some major points that were dropped in this episode. You're right. I don't really know how to like not talk broad on this. There's so much kind of to talk. So I'm just gonna say I'm gonna pass it back to like really
pass
get
it
into
back to me. Let's make it full circle.
Oh yes. Let's get into this.
It is a beautiful episode.
Yes.
It is the I'm gonna fact check this, but based on what I read, I'm pretty sure this is true. Yes, it is. It is Jessica Lee Gagne's directorial debut. First thing that she's ever directed.
It's beautiful.
And it's a fantastic episode. She also acted as the DP on it. She has a big history of being DP on a lot of different projects. She was a cinematographer on 4 episodes of Mrs. America, the FX series. She also was the DP for all 7 episodes of Escape at Dannemora, which Ben Stiller did previously to Severance.
Was she the DP on any other Severance episodes?
13 Severance episodes.
Oh yeah,
so a large majority of them. Let's see the particulars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of season 1 and episode 1, and then 3, 4, and now this episode for season 2. It's a very interesting amalgamation of genres and approach within a self-contained episode with Dichen Lachman being the lead as Miss Casey and Gemma, which I thought was really interesting. We knew that we had to get somewhere soon with kind of her character, but also just understanding some of the backstory.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't get all of it in this episode in Severance fashion. You're not gonna get, like you said, Liz, like you're not gonna get all the answers. But even things like you get the whole like romantic sequence between Gemma and Mark, and it's like very avant-garde, and it feels like very like
of them just like
stylistic, dancing
their
around
day-to-day life of living with books and plants.
And I think that it's just, this show can mold itself into anything, which is why I think it's so great week to week. It's like we were discussing the other day, it's not the same thing, but we were discussing Atlanta and how Atlanta has done something similar, and television in the recent era, which is, I know it doesn't have to do with the episode per se, but it's more of like we've evolved into a place with television where you can have these aside episodes, and you can have these episodes that are inspired by homages to their favorite things, and this feels very topical in terms of that.
Definitely.
And it's affected everybody that's watched it, because on IMDb currently it has a 9.5, which is a very high score, very deserving. But so much of this obviously is a standout performance from Dichen Lachman.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of see, Liz, how you felt about her performance, really getting an understanding of who Gemma is and was prior to this whole program with Lumen, and just kind of, again, I guess the stylistic things that were happening within the episode.
I think her performance is really strong, just to come in after being kind of like a quick snippet throughout the last almost season and a half, and then having a sole episode that can kind of be daunting a little bit, because you can almost go too hard and try to make yourself like, I don't know, you can work too hard a little bit. And I think that she really kept all the work that she's done on the previous episodes and just lengthened it. I think it was so smart also for them to show us how they met and just their love story, because so far right now, at least for me, and I think a lot of viewers, we're kind of rooting for Mark and Helly, but now this throws in a wrench of like, oh, but they were married, like they lived together for so long, like look at the love that they had for each other, and then they also went through tragedy. So I think it's throwing in a little bit of a curveball for the audience, like heartstrings a bit, by showing us the history that they have together. So I think it was really smart writing wise.
Yeah, for sure. Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like prior to this episode, most of what we have gotten has been very vague, and just it kept very just low as far as performance. So I was really excited to see what's her real name again? The actress's name?
Dichen Lachman.
Dichen Lachman. To see what she had to, really, had to show us. And I feel like she fully delivered with this. There were so many moments in this episode, I feel like, where she bounced back and forth between just like different versions of this character,
There's
and
so many innies.
Yes. And it was honestly like to a T, you're right, just because we witnessed her kind of like bounce into these almost sort of severed sort of, it's the same sort of idea of the severed, when they come in and out of it, but it seems a little bit different. It seems like there's something else going on.
They're on the testing floor. You're seeing so much of her endure things differently than the other innies that we've seen.
Exactly. And so just to see that is one thing, but then like you said, to have like this whole love story in the midst of it, and to have it be almost like memory, and literally like memory, because it's like the way that they utilize it with Mark also in the real world being knocked out and then like coming to once it kind of comes back to that last moment.
It's almost like he's dreaming about this.
Yes, exactly. And so it just fits so perfectly. And the connections between the two stories, how they were able to just like, even with just this like the simplicity of like a match shot, like they could tie it right back into the like real world that we're in right now, and not like this almost sort of fantasy world that we were living in. But it's also crazy that through the performances, this fantasy world got so real, and to see like the tragedy and drama that these two characters have kind of like endured together up to this point, and how much conceiving a child has really played into that. I know that we have talked about that before, and it's played a little bit into our theories. So to kind of see that this is a part of their history now is very interesting. So I really enjoyed not only her performance, but just everything that it added to the story. You know?
Yeah, I think getting the humanistic elements of it too were like a breath of fresh air. At a point, like you see the first time that they had met, they're at a blood drive. They're both professors. And their characters are so different than their innies, especially Mark. Like you can kind of see like there's a lot more humor in terms of who he is, and he takes his job seriously, but at the end of the day he still is his own person. They said I know they talked about it at the ending, the end of the episode. The director Jessica talked about too the relationship between Mark and Gemma and his sister Devin and Rickon. And it's a very small scene, but you just see the connectivity and how close they all were. And it like rips your heart out because you're thinking like about the current version of the Audi Mark and like what he has endured, that he has essentially isolated himself to this point where every time we had seen him interact with people on the outside since losing his wife, like there's something that was ripped from him, obviously. And they do a really good job in a 50-minute episode where, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes of it, 25 minutes of it are really about the connection, like the buildup of what Mark and Gemma are. And I think it's brilliant. I think the way that they do it through their sequences and how they're able to, like you were talking about too, Liz, with the montages of how they show their love, they do what a lot of people can't do in like a feature-length movie. Like you can't build chemistry. Like you have to be able to really have it with your actors and with your writing. And I thought this episode did a really great job at all of that. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think that they just kind of gave us like a easy episode of like emotional building in order to prep us for like what's to come. I
don't even know if this episode is easy though. Like there's a lot of, I think
it's easy as in there isn't like,
it's not heady. Like it's not.
Yes. It's not like you're not listening to like, oh, hey, like
Milchick's not delivering these crazy soliloquies.
Yeah. It's much more of a visceral and it's just a very visceral episode in my opinion, compared to other ones, which are a little bit more puzzly. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot to unpack in this one of just like things that we're finally seeing for the first time. But I also think this episode is making, at least for me, my theories a little bit more humanized of what Lumen's going toward, less than that they're like this satanic thing. I'm kind of now leaning a little bit more where they are trying to find a way to eliminate trauma from people's memories. At least that's how I was taking what they're having Gemma and Miss Casey. Like for me, Gemma is an experiment right now of how can we split somebody so many times into different innies so that that core person doesn't ever have to remember what trauma or pain they went through because they can just sever it. Are you staying with me?
I kind of get. I understand what you're saying. I think that I still think they have way more ulterior motives. I still think that so much of it is based in like, even when you get the first reveal. I don't know if you were going to bring this up, but like the first reveal when you see that they're at the blood drive together, and then you see that Lumen is in charge of the blood drive. And it's just that like they are doing it as an experiment to find the right people for something like this. And then the fact that they're also going to a fertility clinic, obviously after she has, it's either, is it before or after she has the miscarriage?
It's after.
It's after. Did they go to the fertility clinic? And that's also run by Lumen, where I just think that so much of it is based in the fact that they still want control. Like they're still, and again, I agree with what you're saying. There's no Satanist element to it, but I still think the one point, like the cult aspect of it, and to be in control of what everybody is doing and be in control of being like essentially the middleman to all aspects of life that people need to move forward and to give them goodness in themselves is what they're attacking. And I think that like you see that even through like the doctor's character, like he has like an attachment to her, and it's like they still have these motives where they're driven by their mission, and it's about Kier's mission more than anything. And that is like, to me, that's still a religious element, like it's, or like a cultish element where like everything needs to go through Kier. We there's still like so much that we still have to learn about Kier and what has to do with that. So I'm not completely neglecting your theory, but I don't know if I fully believe it.
Well, because then what do you think like all the rooms are for that she's going through? Like the dentist, the airplane, the writing Christmas cards. Like, what were you guys interpreting these rooms as?
I think it goes along with what you were saying. I think they're trying to kind of push trauma out of people's heads, but it's not effective enough.
Yeah, because they kept at the doctor. He would ask her like, "How are you feeling today?" And she'd be like, "My wrist hurts." And so then it's the idea of that person knows that something happened, but they aren't burdened necessarily with the knowledge of like
the action
of what actually happened.
Yeah.
Or even you can say like, when she saw her first outfit, she was like, shit. So she knows that that outfit that she's wearing, there's something bad that's associated with it, but she isn't
familiar with what it
familiar
is,
with it, which is then it's like, is that a good thing or is that not a good thing to know that like, yes, you're going through trauma, but you don't know what that trauma is.
Yeah, that's fair. Michael?
Wow. I'm just sitting here watching you guys. I'm like, whoa.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
I love when Michael is like, hold on, I gotta wrap my head around it.
It's like you guys made me realize that like I'm not watching the episode hard enough. Like I'm like, dang. All right, wait, let me kind of like backtrack a little bit. So to your first question, that was just kind of repeated one more time, really. Like,
what did you guys think of the rooms?
The rooms. That's right. So at first I wasn't too sure what to think of it. I just knew that it was something where she was playing the part of a severed doing something. I just knew that. For a while. It took me to realize that until I realized that she had to have been some sort of vessel for something. And it took me until the point where she was writing the letter, and you could like visibly see like whatever she was doing, it was clearly like somebody else's perspective that she was just kind of a body for. And so I do think that the rooms are different. They represent different people. I do think I'm still watching it. I had in the back of my head the theory that you threw out there, Darian, a while ago, as far as like time travel, or like maybe that could be involved. I don't think this is time travel, but I do think that a lot of these rooms could weirdly be doors to
other universes, essentially, or
sort of, or just even if it's all still like in our universe or even just on our world. I don't want to go as far as saying that like, oh, they're magic and they could just like adore, like Harry Potter, like, you know, like, no. It's like, I do think though that it's there is some sort of connection worldwide with Lumen that we aren't really seeing. We're just seeing right here. And I think that maybe in later seasons we'll explore how big Lumen really is. But I do think that the rooms are representative of some other place. Like, I can't, it's very vague, and I just have to keep it vague because I don't know. She's
experiencing other people's experiences that have already happened.
Yes, basically. I don't know. I'm trying now to kind of like look at this with like the whole idea of trauma and like the idea of, I don't know. And then Darian, can you just repeat one more time what you said in response to that? As
about what you were saying with the,
because I agreed to it.
Talking about the cults.
He was talking about it being a cult.
Yes.
Like wanting to have power over everything.
Yes. So I do still think that there is a some sort of cult element in this. I don't know if this is a very vague or small detail. And I very well should have fact checked this or like looked it up before I started even bringing this up, but sorry. But when they first meet, they're both, it's like a really sweet moment where like they're both reading something, and Gemma is like reading something about religion, and then she says, I forget what it is, but she mentions it's something with religion. And
yeah, so, it's something in it might be like nihilism. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's yeah, I do remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, it may have just been like something that was literally nothing at all. But it was just, again, like we're little details of a religion being thrown in here. And I do think that there is still some sort of underlying sort of evil sort of at play. I don't know exactly how far you want to go with evil, but
There's
like
two elements. There are two moments now I'm remembering
Okay.
that completely at least correlate to what I believe and why I think it has to do with an evil control.
Okay.
Again, we're not talking Satan.
Yeah, no.
I just think, again, I do think that, and I never was saying, for the record, I was never saying that they were all Satan on earth. What I was saying is that there's a lot of imagery that goes along with that, right? That it could be an evil, like a looming evil or whatever. Two things happened in this episode that I was like, that is so fucked up. Like, what is happening? First one is Milchick. The only time we get a scene with Milchick in this whole episode is when the severed version of Miss Casey finally steals the elevator key and gets all the way to essentially where we need to get answers, the end of the hallway, and Milchick is like refuting any time she can speak words.
Yeah.
Turn around, Miss Casey. Go back where you belong, Miss Casey. It's okay. Like, holy shit. Like, can't even be a person. So that's another part where it's like they need to be in control of the situation. They cannot allow anyone to have free will, which is so much that has to do with good versus evil, until Cold Harbor is done. Can't happen. That's the first one. Second one is the doctor that I was talking about that also had the infatuation. I don't know what his character name is, but he's played by Robby Benson, which I didn't know, but I watched the episode with my mom, and she's like, is that Robby Benson? So I did a little bit of research. This guy has barely done any on-screen work for years, but he is the voice of the Beast from Beauty and the Beast in 1991.
Wow.
And he has only done voice roles as the Beast for like 2 decades.
Wow.
Just making his money, racking up money, just
Good
doing
for
the voice of
him.
the Beast. But so he plays the doctor in this episode. Very creepy, very eerie kind of vibe. And we also get the information where she goes, I want to go see Mark. And he goes, well, he has a life without you now, which is a fucking lie. So they are doing everything to just be in control of this narrative. And I think that that is all of what Lumen wants to do. And even the fact that Lumen has a fertility clinic, or at least is posing as a fertility clinic, and they have a blood drive, like there's plus the goats, plus the cloning, like there's too much involved that it's like they just want to run everything in the world.
It's like any big corporation
Yeah,
you think about.
Exactly.
It is. That lets me also, hearing how much they're attached with that, it lets me think they are attached to the church in some way outside. Because I think we had a church scene in a previous episode in season 1, I think it was, where it was like they were outside of a church protesting Lumen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, all of these just seem like little tactics that Lumen would do, honestly.
Well, I also think about like, so I was watching one of the recap videos, and they were talking about like, again, like the relationships with babies, right? So like Miss Cobell is the one that comes in as like, what does she call herself again? You know what I'm talking about? Like when for Devin, for Mark's sister.
Oh, like her name?
No, like her occupation.
She's like a breastfeeding specialist.
Yeah, so like something else correlated to, again, the birth of a child. Then there's that, I completely forgot about the scene, but it's in season 1.
With the birthing location.
Is that where I don't know if that's what I was talking about. Where Devin meets up with the mother, the new mother.
Yeah.
And she has like another interaction with her, and it's very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, they might be
Severed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like, again, so much of that is based in, like, again, it could be a cloning thing, but we
but
talked about, or
I think that it has to do with this episode completely changed my opinion of it's more about like getting rid of pain. So like she was severed to give birth because birth is like the ultimate like traumatic and painful experience.
Physical pain, though, you're saying.
Physical pain.
Yeah.
But now I think that potentially what Cold Harbor is testing like
psychological pain,
psychological or emotional pain, and that's why they need Mark to complete it in order for her to go into it. Or it's the ultimate physical pain and it just kills her, and they see if like somehow her person can live if her like severed part dies.
That's interesting. I think it just also adds, like, I think the psychological thing has to have some merit, because I know I've talked about this, like, I think every week since it happened, but the whole thing with the interaction between Milchick and Natalie and the psychological and emotional feeling they get when they see, like, Kier in blackface is something that it serves a purpose for their characters. Like, it's the only time, it's the only time we see Milchick be, like, emotionally wrapped up in something. And we don't have an answer to that. And he kind of addresses it with Natalie following up with it. And she can't even speak to it because now she's a member of that hierarching.
I don't know if we will get a
We might not.
I don't think so, because a part of me also thinks that it's just their way of commenting on corporate conversations of like, there's so many times in companies that uncomfortable things happen to somebody and they try to talk to somebody about it and that person does not respond because they don't want to put themselves in like a bad position. So
I can
it could just be a
understand that.
comment on like corporate wrongs.
I get that part of it, but Natalie's response, like
she's a robot, I think. She's got to be.
But in that scene, in the scene where she gives it to him and she has that face on. Remember we talked about it?
Yeah.
Like there's something behind her where it's like if you're going through an emotional trauma, like a psychological pain, and you just can't let it out, like you're doing everything in your power to force it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that she went through. Like I think Natalie is a product of like the earliest testing of this Severance program.
Maybe.
And I think that Milchick is not. Which I know that's kind of
because he's not severed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
she could be for all we know.
Yeah.
But I also think like they're testing Gemma because even when they're asking her about Mark and like when she says like, oh, when can I see Mark? I think they're trying to see how much can she be severed and still like keep her psychological self together and like keep remembering Mark even though she's being split all this many times. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I feel like we've just been talking the two of us. Do you have anything else?
No,
I'm sorry.
You guys give me enough time to gather my thoughts, so it's okay. But then I also like kind of need you guys to repeat certain things. My bad. I apologize.
We're just going off.
You're good. You're good. What's it called? All right. So I'm gonna say first to the. What did you? I'm trying to remember what did you address first?
We're talking about like the psychological, like if it really is to do with trauma, at what point does it get into a psychological trauma?
Got you. Okay. Also then going into the whole Milchick thing too, because I wanted to play on talk about that as well. I do think that it is playing into trauma for sure, like you said, your new theory. I do think it will end up being like, again, like you said, like a reverse, like Cold Harbor could be like, or once it's done, something where it's like they're going to try and like test like the psyche with bad things. Bad things. You know, like I think they're just test the psyche in a bad way. Now going to what you had said, Darian, I do think that we are witnessing some of that. I agree. I think that the blackface Kier painting is to a degree a little bit of that, and I think that just because we're witnessing a lot of the people in the Severed Four kind of like lose their minds, and Miss Cobell I feel like is another kind of like clear example of that. Yet correct me if I'm wrong, didn't after everything happened they brought her back for like a little bit, like after like the first season happened? Am I wrong, or didn't they like there was a period of time where something happened where she left and then she was brought back and then she left again? Miss Cobell.
Yeah, there's a scene. There's early on the season, either like episode 3 or 4, like at the very end of the episode, she's like, come on in, like we'll talk about it inside, Helena. Mm-hmm. And then Miss Cobell's like, fuck that, and then she like turns around and starts walking back to her car.
No. He's talking about season 1. You think that she got like let go or something?
No, the reason I even brought that up in the first place was because the fact that something like that, maybe it's I feel like we've seen examples of things being brought back at times. Maybe I have stretched that, or maybe that isn't as much as it is based off of it. I thought there was a moment in season 1 where Miss Cobell kind of like left and then they brought her back. I could have that completely wrong.
Either,
all right. Well,
I think that she got let go and then she forced herself into it when she realized that they were.
That's what it was. You are right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay. My fault. I had that mixed up. Well, then still going back to the whole Milchick thing and the painting, I do think that they are testing the psyches already to a degree with these people. Certain things that they're doing, and that even kind of like going back. I don't know. This is a theory that's like, I don't know. It's I don't say it's dragged out, but it's like I'm dragging it now a little bit. Like even to the degree of what they're doing with like a character, say like Dylan, like bringing his wife in and then threatening him to take it away, like something like that. That like it is playing into like the Severed Floors story plot line right now, but it could be something even bigger where it's like, oh, what if we like test or like we give him something and then like take it away. See, like little things like that I think that they could be doing. I don't really know, to be honest, because at this point it seems like they're doing everything. I just definitely think it has to do with the psyche, because why are we spending so much time in the mind and the brain in the first place if it wouldn't be? So,
well, here's one of my bigger questions for you, for both of you guys. Do we think, because so we know obviously they couldn't naturally have a child. She has the miscarriage. We see that. They try to get IVF treatments. That doesn't take. Mark is visibly upset and emotionally upset about the fact that she can't get pregnant. Then obviously the cops show up at the door telling him that she's gone. Do we think that Lumen kidnapped her, or do we think she is willingly partaking in this because she was promised that she will have a child?
Well, I don't know, because the one thing that throws me off about everything is that Mark says that he saw her dead body and identified it. So like a part of me is still like she could have still died. Like they could have killed her off, but then somehow brought her back.
Well, not according to Robby. Robby's like she's been alive the whole time. She never died.
But like, I don't know. That's such a specific line. I feel like to say like I identified her body. What do you think?
I think that Lumen at this point has the far more than the ability to fake a body, or something like that. I do.
I don't think she was dead ever.
I don't think she was dead. And I think that she volunteered herself.
I think so too.
Yeah,
that's my thought process. I think she wanted to do something for the sake of her relationship, but it also she wanted to also have the baby. And I think that at the same time, though, they were kind of headhunting them, and they were kind of in the moment of like, we need to find the perfect people to take advantage of, to get them in a situation to be like, oh, you can go ahead and do this. Because the same thing happened with Mark. Like then he went and got severed because of her death to help along with this process.
Even further, I think that Lumen was dropping breadcrumbs in the middle of plot A and plot B, like her death and him getting severed. I think that Lumen was dropping breadcrumbs to get him to come. I don't want to say that. I just feel like, yes, he got severed because of the death, and it was like almost like kind of just to the mental part of it, get over it. I don't think it's just that. I think that in some way or another he was led to Lumen, now coming off of Gemma being there. And again, knowing that Mark is still like an important part of this all, they had to have known that. And I think that they had to get him here in a way without being like, hey, you want a job sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm not saying that like it was just blatant, but I just feel like how ironic, and I know this is the show, I don't know, but how really ironic is it that she could end up at Lumen in this circumstance, and then Mark could end up down the hall in a similar circle. I don't know. It just made sense. To me, it does. I don't know.
So then my question, if you guys are on that thought, when they say, when Drummond, like the head, one of the like security guys says, we'll have to say goodbye to Gemma when Cold Harbor is completed. What do you
Well, there's a follow-up to that.
What do you think is happening to her?
So that's I don't know. That I can't answer. I don't even have a theory.
Well, but I feel like there's one of two ways. She dies or they let her out.
Well, yeah, maybe. But the way that it is described to her from the doctor is, you will see the world again. I have the quote up. So I'm not
good. Read it for us.
You will see the world again, and the world will see Gemma again. And as for whether she'll ever see Mark again, she's told Mark will benefit from the world you're siring. Kier will take away all his pain just as Kier has taken away yours.
So from that line,
it's all cult.
From that line, it sounds to me that she dies and then there's a baby a baby Gemma is
like
made.
Gemma's reincarnated into a child.
Into a child
which
that
would
is
be
then
a really-
given to Mark.
Well, that could. But
That's
I mean,
what I'm taking
again,
from
if you're thinking about just the fact that, like, I don't know, this is
if we're going on the baby route.
this is a spiritual theory, I guess, based on the people believe this. But like, I don't know if either of you ever heard this, but they're like, oh, usually someone in your inner circle or someone that is in your stratosphere, like when somebody dies, they're quickly replaced by the entity of new life, a child. I don't know if either of you have ever heard that, or you've seen that theory, or you partake in that belief. But it could be a commentary on that if that's your takeaway.
Well, what's your takeaway?
I don't have one. I can't even begin to speculate. I think that we have 3 episodes left, and I think
they say we'll have to say goodbye to her, and then they say to her, you will reconnect with the world, and the world will reconnect with Gemma. What's
I feel like it could be one of 2 things. I feel like it's either going to be some sort of child, whether it's like a reincarnation through that child, or I have no idea. With that, I just think that it could be something like that. I do also think that it could be Gemma herself, but just
popping back in there.
The body of Gemma, and like the innies, somebody that's innie will be living through that eye, so she'll be in the world, and Gemma will see the world, but it won't necessarily be Gemma.
Remember we discussed very early on in the season that there were rumors or theories that Miss Huang might be the daughter of. Miss Huang might be.
No, she's too old.
What do you mean?
I feel like Miss Huang is like she's at least 15 years old.
That doesn't mean that the spirit can't go within the body of a child.
So what, you think she's Gemma?
I think there's a possibility. What is the reasoning for Miss Huang to be in this show?
She's on the internship program.
What does that mean, Liz?
What does anything mean in this show at this point? Let's be real. What's the paper clipping that Milchick did for like an entire episode?
We did get a response, and we got a comment to that from one of our past episodes. Great viewer. Sorry, I don't remember your name. But they had said that it's said in a line of dialogue earlier on, whether it's this season or last season, that Milchick's least favorite thing to do is paperclip documents together.
So he forces himself to paperclip?
That was his punishment.
Oh.
Like for himself, by being like, oh, like...
I'm not on the whole Miss Huang is Gemma.
It's just a possibility.
I'm not on it.
Well, you weren't on the Satanist cult thing, and now look at where we're at.
It's not confirmed.
Just saying.
I still don't think it's a full cult. I think that it's just a corporation, and corporations are culty.
Well, Lumen has 5 letters, so does Apple, and this show is on Apple.
Satan.
Let's go, Liz! Yes! Full circle to hell.
Yeah.
Yes! Straight to hell. Oh my goodness. I don't know. We're going off the rails. I don't know if there's a lot of theories. There's like so much that we can't wrap our brain around. The only answers that we know is that obviously Lumen has had their fingers in everything with this woman since the moment she's met Mark. Like the fact that they sponsored a blood drive that was their first interaction has to be some sort of setup for something. So that's all I have.
That's all. I mean, I could keep going, but I think it's just going to get into like crazy theories that just aren't.
This is like I'm up every night thinking about this show.
I have pinpoints in the.
You're like Charlie and Always Sunny. Yeah, exactly. Michael, do you have anything else?
Just to the whole Miss Huang thing, I do think that, I think that it isn't fully Miss Casey. I think that
half of Miss Casey
and half of Mark.
So I think that it's like kind of a little bit of Miss Casey, but like Miss Casey's also kind of clearly still here. So I think that we'll find out in the next episode.
It could be another version of a severed Miss Casey.
That's what I think it's like
could be, like it's the childish version of Miss Casey.
I think it's like a early prototype of what they're trying to do, essentially. Yeah.
No. I'm not on board, and I am disagreeing with you guys, and we'll just have to wait and see who's right. But I'm not on board with it.
All right, that's fine. You don't need to be on board with it. This is the fun of this, is that we get to just play around and see what it might be. Lumen spelled backwards is apple, which is the same as Satan, and we all know that. So everybody, thank you for watching our latest episode of Severance, Chikai Bardo, episode 7. We have 3 weeks left to cover this show in season 2. Then we're going to be waiting quite a while. It's going to piss Liz off, but they just started writing season 3, like I said. So like they're ways away from even filming, I think. But obviously, like you were saying, they have to have a path. They need to know where they're going to end up. They got renewed for season 3 before season 2 even premiered. So I think they might move a little bit faster on it this time around. Plus, in between, you had strikes well. You had writer strike, you had acting strike. So there's some room for them to maybe have a quicker turnaround. But we're obviously loving this show. Let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on this episode, this season in general? Are you guys liking it? What did you guys think about this episode in particular? Comment your thoughts below. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys. Give this video a like if you can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We're not only covering this show, but we're also covering The White Lotus. We're covering Invincible. I'm getting ready to cover Daredevil Born Again with Vinny. Lots of other things we're going to be covering going forward. Mickey 17 upcoming. So be sure to check all that stuff out. We just recapped the Oscars. So lots for you guys to check out. Also, you can follow us on all our social media if you don't already. All that stuff is below me in the video. It's also in our YouTube description. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, anywhere you guys have social media, we're probably there. So be sure to give us a follow and share with your friends and family. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And I'm Michael Peniston.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.